If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah blah blah.
Sending out good vibes.
The blah blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
The blah blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. Coming at you this week with friend of the show, Graham Dunlop. Starting out his podcast tour, I guess, or are you?
I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but dude, I've been putting this together for a while, so I figured we might as well make an episode out of it, you know?
So what is this? Is this something is it something you came up with from doing all the books you're doing, or?
Yeah, kind of. So I was reading all these books on ancient wisdom and, ancient wisdom and magic and all this stuff. And I'm seeing patterns like, well, you know what? It's not even a pattern, really. It's an anomaly in a way. And this stuff kept coming up, and I thought, and then it happened where I read one book and I'm like, okay, this is it kind of put it all together for me. And I was like, I got to either write a book about this or put it all down in a presentation or something like that. So I just started sort of going and doing more research on it. And it was like, it kind of exploded. I mean, so I'm going to try. I shortened the presentation down because it was too long. I did a couple dry runs. So I've squeezed it down, but it's still, a little while. So hopefully, you can just pipe in at any time and ask questions or get me to go deeper or not. But I'll try to keep sort of a decent pace without boring people too much. But and I'll try make it okay for the audio too, because it is sort of a somewhat visual presentation, but there's a lot of quotes from old books and stuff. So I was looking through these books and do we need to do any kind of other intro before I get started talking about it, or?
I don't think so. This ain't going to come out till after Cosmic Summit and everything. So this is we're both traveling when this comes out.
Yeah.
I probably just got back from England and Graham is still traveling. So, I mean, the only real housekeeping would be to support the show. America.ca/support if you can.
Yeah, a lot of these books come from adultbrain.ca. I mean, a lot of the references will be like audiobooks that we've done. And I will say, like, when I haven't read the books, there's a couple in here that I haven't read, but most of them I've read cover to cover.
Yeah, exactly. So people should check that out, adultbrain.ca, and they should support us, grimerica.ca/support. I mean, I won't do the whole spiel here today, but we need support, either one-time donations or monthly subscriptions. YouTube doesn't give us any money. We're fully demonetized. You can't support us here. The only money we get is if people like y'all choose to support us. So,
and that's Adult Brain, not Addled Brain. Thanks, Rob, in the chat. Yes, it's Adult Brain with our Canadian accents. Yes, I know it sounds addled.
I don't have an accent.
You've got like a mix of like
Adult Brain,
Northern Canadian, Native, Indian.
Come off it. I'm wearing my cowboy hat.
When I first met you, I was like, man, this guy sounds weird.
Me?
And then we ended up podcasting together. It's really weird. Yeah, you had that like extreme. I mean, I'm from Vancouver. I didn't really meet a lot of.
I just say fuck a lot. Isn't that it?
And the
farther east you go,
and now here I am in small town Canada.
The farther east you go, the more we say fuck. I mean, you get to Newfoundland, dude. It's like fuck, bye.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
I don't even know what they're saying in Newfoundland, dude. I'm just like, yeah, sounds good. Dude, I was on George Street. Is it George Street?
Yes.
Like Party Street in St. John with a bunch of drunk with a bunch of newfies, dude. It was just I
don't understand.
Everyone gets drunk and I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about anymore. And I'm just like, all right, cool.
I had to translate for my newfie hockey buddy that we'd always get drunk, and I was the only one that could understand. I'd have to translate for other people what he was saying.
So that was me, except they were all newfies.
Yeah.
And I could understand until we get to drinking. And then it's just like, that was just my buddy Mike Hunt.
Yeah.
Mike Hunt from Newfoundland. And dude, that was actually right when I got clean. I was like, I like woke up in a hotel room on the bay after partaking in some drugs and alcohol.
I went pretty hard there too.
Yeah, I went pretty hard. Woke up in the morning, like looking out the window on the bay, and I was just like, I gotta fucking make some changes. And I only did coke like fucking twice since after that, and then I was like, it wasn't the same because it was a real epiphany in that hotel room. It was like rock bottom,
Yeah.
There was some rock bottomness to it.
Yeah, that's good. Good. That's good that you recognize that.
And here we are. I mean, I probably started the podcast so that would have been 2010. So the podcast started 3 years after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Well, okay. So when I present it though, I'm not going to see you in StreamYard. So I'll have to minimize my screen that I've got that I'm reading from.
That's fine. I'm just gonna mute and smoke weed. So and take this in. I'm excited to see this. I'm proud of you.
Okay.
I'm excited to see what you got. This is gonna set off a bunch of people.
So what happened is I kept coming across this 3-day thing, right? And mainly it was like resurrection, like we all know. There's a couple main ones, right? I'll go through this, but it was the resurrection and then initiations, and I started seeing initiations that sort of. And then it exploded from there. And I'm like, something is going on here, like something more bigger than I realize or anybody realizes. And I have no answers, but just a lot of questions. Like, what is this? So, I mean, this is like a presentation of data and information and then a bunch of questions. So ready?
I think I'm ready. Yeah. I'm excited because I mean, before you get into it, I guess my thing on the 3 days has always been, I figure I'll get it out now, and then we can see if you can change my mind. But it's just always been on the solstices and the 3 days and the Son of God. And dude, so I started reading not reading, but I found that Old Testament of the Bible, and I started going through that. It's interesting because it's been 30 years, so it's interesting to listen to with like all the new information I've got over the years. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start bookmarking some stuff in that, and maybe I'll have a presentation about this. But dude, I got like, I'm not even through Genesis yet. And I'm like, shit, I gotta learn Greek.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. I have a Greek I have a Greek website that I translate with. I have to always translate these Greek words into English words as I'm narrating them. So I always have to I found a really good one that you just plug in the letters and it gives you the word in English.
Yeah, I was talking to Lantern Jack actually, and he's like, well, if you did it for an hour a day for a year, then in a year you'd probably be able to do it.
That's a lot. An hour a day. I mean, geez, who's got an hour a day?
Oh yeah, that's fucking, and it's not like a fun hour either. That's like, is ancient Greek in Duolingo?
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be if I could.
Why does the audio version tell you that you got to learn Greek? Like,
it doesn't. I'm just like there's words in there that I don't think are translated correctly.
Oh, I see.
Already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'd like to just read this bitch in Greek so that I can make those translations on my own with my mind, because my mind with my experience is gonna. If I knew the language, I can't actually really speak to this because I don't speak 2 languages. I speak a little bit of French, probably like as much as you.
I know, but at least the language, at least the letters are the same. I mean, learning a Greek language to me seems like just might as well be learning Chinese. I mean, it's got.
Yeah, but so what my thought is though is like with your experiences, and then when you know 2 languages, your experience probably ties into how you translate some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're a dude who's a by the book, whatever, archaeologist or paleontologist that's been taught XYZ and you're XYZ, even if not, it doesn't even have to be like dirty pool. You know what I mean? You're just honestly doing your best to translate this stuff, but you're fucking pre-programmed that this is what's happened. And all that shit was translated when we were pretty certain, we were pretty certain about the history and the everything. There wasn't really any room for all the crazy ideas that are going around today, and that there seems to be a ton of evidence to support. I mean, so it'd be interesting to, like, I'm not telling you right now, before people say that I'm going to turn to a Christian. That's not going to happen. I'm really trying to read it now from more of as a historical piece, because, I've seen the Great Flood evidence. So what does this fucking book actually say? What does it say? Now I'm intrigued into what it says just from a historical perspective. And
all right.
but I'm already thinking, if I knew Greek, you should learn Greek.
No, I can't.
Like halfway there.
No. So, but let me just say then. So this is part of what you're thinking is part of it. I mean, it's going to be the intuitive part, but I think this will show that it must be bigger than that.
Bigger than what?
Bigger than what you just
like
said.
The Beatles.
Bigger than the solar stuff.
Oh, I thought you meant bigger than Jesus.
No,
I thought you meant your presentation was going to be bigger than Jesus.
No.
So that's a bold claim for right now. Jesus is arguably bigger than he's ever been.
Yeah, exactly.
Just by the numbers. So
can you see that? What slide are you on right now?
3 days an Enigma.
Okay, that one. Okay. So we've all heard about, like, this is the main one, right? Of course, Jesus rose from the dead on the third day after his death, right? God raised him from the dead on the third day. And then the other big one. What's that?
But he died in April.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Well, there is some other references that might sort of tie that in as well.
Oh yeah, and he was born on. So is there any third day stuff for when he was born?
He rose from the dead on the third. I don't know. Let's see. I don't think so. So then the other big one, of course, is Jonah, right? But the Lord provided a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish 3 days. So that's like the two main ones that people sort of know about, right? But then there's a whole bunch more of these ancient references to 3 days in terms of resurrection. So
wait. Is that where Moby Dick came from then?
No.
It's not extrapolated from Jonah being eaten by the fish?
I don't think so. So this is from Secret Teachings of All Ages. So these are all like ancient sort of resurrection stuff, right? So and I'm going to read a little bit of a description of the books, just not for you, but for the audience, that this, so they know what the sort of the books are about, right? This is from the Secret Teachings of All Ages from Manly P. Hall, published in 1928. It was like an encyclopedic work that delves into ancient wisdom, covering topics such as alchemy, astrology, Kabbalah, and the mysteries of ancient civilizations. So this is about Adonis here, who was originally an androgynous deity who represented the solar power. So right there, Darren, there's this solar reference. Destroyed by the evil principle of cold, the boar, after 3 days. And this is where he mentions months. So there's some people that try to tie the days and months together. 3 days in the tomb. He rose triumphant on the 25th of March. Amidst the acclamation of his priests and followers, he has risen. Now, the weird thing is, like, Bacchus as well was from March 25th. Now, March 25th, funny enough, is my sobriety date. That was weird reading Manly P. Hall. I'm like, oh my God, this is like there was this resurrection on March 25th, and that was my sobriety date. And it wasn't just Adonis, Bacchus was in there too, I think.
And when's Jesus? Easter's in March.
Yeah, exactly. Not all the time though, right? I guess it would be.
I don't know how they figure that shit out.
Yeah, I don't know how they figure that out either. So then we get to like Greek mythology with Dionysus. So the god of wine, fertility, and ecstasy was killed and dismembered by the Titans. However, he was resurrected by his grandmother Rhea after 3 days. So there's another one. Then we get to Phrygian mythology. Attis was a vegetation god whose death and resurrection were celebrated in the Phrygian religion. So this is all more than like just, Christianity, right? According to the myth, castrated himself under a pine tree and bled to death. However, after 3 days, he was resurrected by the goddess Sybil. And then Zoroastrianism, the time period of his resurrection is often described as 3 days. And then we get to ancient Egypt. Now, this is from Light of the World, Gerald Massey. So this book, we've got these books on audio too. They were published in 1907. 2 volumes, he delves into the symbolic and allegorical meanings of Egyptian myths, rituals, and deities, arguing that many modern religious concepts have their roots in ancient Egyptian beliefs. So, from his, let me see here. This was the short time betwixt the first and the second coming of the Lord, which was about 3 nights in the mysteries. So, he's talking about the mystery schools here. And then this is the book here that actually triggered me to go, okay, like this is the one that put it all together for me. This is Mysteries and Modern Masonry from Reverend Vale. And this is from 1909. So again, early 1900s. It examines the esoteric symbolic aspect of Masonic traditions, tracing their origins to ancient civilizations such as Egypt, Greece, and Rome. It delves into the spiritual and philosophic teachings of these ancient mysteries.
Wait. You got to be on a different slide than me now. Mine is Mysteries and Modern Masonry.
Yeah,
That's
right. Yeah, that's the one.
But I don't see the words you're reading.
No, I'm just reading you about the book. Yeah, I'm reading about the book. This is about the book that triggered, like, this book sort of put it all together for me. He's talking about all are represented as divinely begotten and born at the same time of the year. All are threatened with death in infancy. All are tempted, persecuted, and finally slain. All descend into hell, and after 3 days rise from the dead. And at last all ascend into heaven and become glorified gods. His resurrection from the bed or tomb was his restoration to life, or his regeneration into a new world. That's kind of describing the sort of the syncretism of it. And then this is this is from the Manly P. Hall magazine, from the article Zoroaster and Fire article. So he's talking about Mithras and Orpheus. From Mithras comes the concept of the resurrected Lord, who after 3 days in the tomb rolls away the stone and redeems his world. And then from the History of Magic, Dr. Ennemoser. So this is when was this one written? This is again from, I think this is from the 1800s, the mid 1800s.
1881.
Yeah, and it traces the magic from ancient times to the author's contemporary period, which is still before 1900. He explores a wide array of magical traditions, including ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, medieval European practices. So this is the veil of the temple will be rent, and at midday there will be a darkness of 3 hours long, and he will die, repose 3 days in sleep, and then it will, in the joyful light, he will come again as the first. I think he's talking about Jesus there, though. So there's a bunch of other myths on resurrections that aren't specific to 3 days. So, but there is these resurrections happening. Mithraism, Inuit mythology, Maori, Haida, Buddhism, Sumerian, Hinduism, Finnish mythology. And then there's also a bunch of general myths on crucifixions. And this is from Manly P. Hall again, The Secret Teachings. So he's talking about among those connected historically or allegorically with the crucifixion are Prometheus, Adonis, Apollo, Eris, Bacchus, Buddha, Krishna, Horus, Indra, Ixion, Mithras, Osiris, Pythagoras, Quetzalcoatl, Semiramis, and Jupiter. So according to this fragmentary account's extent, all these heroes gave their lives to the service of humanity, and with 1 or 2 exceptions, died as martyrs for the cause of human progress. Now, I don't know if that's true. There's a lot of people that are saying that a lot of this syncretism has been debunked. Like remember we had a guy on Grammaric Outlawed recently who said a lot of this syncretism is debunked, and even just a general word about all this stuff, like whether it's true or not, like that even doesn't matter to me. The fact is that this is written down in all these books. So whether it's true, it would almost be.
There's a code here. That's what I mean. That's what I think. There's a code here that can be, maybe understood in a different way, because I had just sort of written a lot of it off, but now it's like, okay, it's worth knowing this stuff because
right.
I mean, I can tell you right now that when I get reading the listen to the Bible again, it's like, dude, they're talking about fucking aliens. I mean, there's multiple gods going on here. There's already multiple gods going on.
Right.
And they're visiting each other and maybe fighting with each other or starting to fight with each other. I don't know. This might be leading up to maybe some sort of a war.
Right.
I'm excited. I mean, dude, I don't know if I ever really read the Bible.
Yeah,
I never read it. I remember, like, in the beginning, we used to say, "Oh, it's about a baseball game."
Yeah,
but I probably never got past,
Yeah.
So I'm like into aliens right now. It's like, oh fuck,
that's aliens. Crazy. So this is now moving away from like the the deity resurrection, like the mythological stuff. This is about like ancient awakenings and NDEs, ancient. So this is like still old accounts.
It's a pretty hardcore picture.
Dude, the research got crazy on the buried alive stuff. They were making I'll talk about it in here. They were making burials so that people could get out of them because there were so many accounts of people waking up in their tombs, in their graves.
You might scare some kids with that one. I'm just saying you might want to just chill that one out a little bit. Something like this. You know,
So
that's
these
more easier to observe.
So these are all three. Look at this guy popping his head out of the ground there. So these are all 3 days as well. So this is from ISIS Unveiled from H.P. Blavatsky, which is, there's 2 volumes, Science and Religion, or Theology. They challenge the orthodox science and religious doctrines, proposing that ancient spiritual knowledge holds the keys to understanding the mysteries of existence. So here's one. Demon Brook mentions a peasant who gave no signs of life for 3 days, but when placed in his coffin near the grave, revived and lived many years afterward. And then again from Isis Unveiled, Plutarch, relating the story of Thespesius, who fell from a great height and lay 3 days apparently dead, gives us the experience of the latter during his state of partial decease. So, and here, okay, I'm going to go on with what Thespesius says, because it is interesting going back and looking at some of these old things. Then observed that he was different from the dead by whom he was surrounded. They were transparent and environed by a radiance, but he seemed to trail after him a dark radiation or line of shadow. So that sounds like an ancient NDE to me. Again, Isis Unveiled, and the great dragon was cast out, that archaic Ophis, called Diabolos and Satan, that deceiveth the whole world. It is added, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. The Lamb, or Christ, had to descend himself to hell, the world of the dead, and remain there 3 days before he subjugated the enemy, according to the myth. So that's just another sort of reference, I think, to Jesus. But what they say is that he went to hell and back. Isis Unveiled again. A friend Bruno, a French physician, famed far and wide for his extraordinary piety, purity, and morals and charity, died, and his body was watched by Bruno himself 3 days after his death, and he was going to be buried. The pious physician suddenly sat up in his coffin and declared in a loud and solemn voice that by the just judgment of God he was eternally damned. So this is History of Magic by Anna Moser.
1854.
Yeah, this one or the other one?
Well, that was volume 2, so they're probably both. I think he would have written them almost all at once.
Yeah. So this is a wide array of magic traditions, including ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, and medieval. Oh, I think I already read this description of that book. Anyways, also notable magicians and alchemists, magic, religion, and science. So this is from the Trance and Somnambulism chapter. You must return to the earth. So it's interesting. They were, it sounds like an NDE account. You must return to the earth. This seemed like a sword through my heart. In an instant, I recollected to have seen my brother standing disputing with the doctor. So it sounds like an OBE/NDE. The 3 days during which I had appeared lifeless seemed to me not more than 10 or 20 minutes. The idea of returning to this world of sorrow and trouble gave me such a shock that I repeatedly fainted. And then from vampires. So this is History of Magic from the vampires.
Could be abduction.
Yeah, maybe. So in the beginning of September, there died in the village of Kisilova, 3 leagues from Graditz, an old man who was 62 years of age. 3 days after he'd been buried, he appeared in the night to his son and asked him for something to eat. So, okay, this guy appeared at night to his son, like it could be a ghost sighting or something. But again, the 3 days is in there. And just so you know, like I wasn't seeing 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 2 days. I mean, there might have been the odd one, but 3 days was the one that came up all the time. And here's another one from the vampire. In the space of 3 months, 17 persons of different sexes and different ages died of vampirism, some without being ill and others after languishing 2 or 3 days. And then the next quote is, had nearly strangled her in her sleep. She fell into a languid state from that moment, and at the end of 3 days, she died. History of the Supernatural. So this is from 1863. Another 2-volume work, including ghosts, apparitions, witchcraft, spiritualism, and other paranormal activities. And he provides historical accounts and case studies from various cultures on this stuff. So this is from America. Whitefield went with William Tennant, who had once lain in a trance for 3 days and was saved only by his physician from being buried alive. You see that picture there? That's about they were making these coffins for people so that they could actually like screw their way out of there if they awoke in the middle. So they're like basically like you can leave from the inside of the coffin.
So is the premise here that lots of people just get up after 3 days? Maybe we shouldn't be burying our dead so quick.
Well, isn't that
I put
interesting?
that
Right?
in my thing that if I die, to just leave me in the basement for 3 days. Day 4, do what you gotta do.
Isn't that interesting, eh? I mean, well, there was a bit of a what do you call it? Like a bit of a it was
They put fucking doors on the inside of the coffins, man.
yeah,
I'm
they were
telling
worried
you.
about it back then, right?
Don't
It seemed
bury
to be
me for 3 days.
yeah, it seemed to be happening a lot. And then you go back to the ancient stuff. So okay. Here's the next one. So this is when he was 12 years of age, the boy Jakul in an Icelandic version of the folktale goes in search of his father. They fight and the son is slain. At least he dies after living for 3 nights. In other versions, the fight betwixt father and son is continued for 3 days. The Arcane Schools. This one is published in 1909, another early 1900s one, and it traces the origin and evolution of various mystical and initiatory schools from ancient times to the modern era. That's from John Yarker. So he's talking about Plutarch here, alluding to the actual divorce of the soul from the body. So he says, who apparently died from a fall and after 3 days returned to his body, and details his experience of the exquisite sights which he beheld. So it looks like another sort of long NDE. And another one from that same book. It was thought necessary, the legend says, following a widely spread belief that the structure should be sanctified by living sacrifice. And Odrian offered himself for that purpose and was buried alive. After a lapse of 3 days, Columba thought he would like to have a look at his old friend and uncovered him, upon which Adrian started up alive and began his experience. He learned the truth in the other world. There was no fall of man, no personal Christ, no personal devil, and no hell. So this is from Star Myth World, David Matheson. So when I was putting this presentation together, it led me to David Matheson. And and it sort of triggered a bunch of memories from when we first had David on, like back in 2014, 2015 on our podcast. And this is where sort of this whole thing started murmuring around in my brain. So he says here, a clear intimation of the resurrection on the 3rd day is seen in an Egyptian text which runs, I will arrange for you to go to the river when you die and to come to life again on the 3rd day. Isn't that interesting? So it looks like there's some intention here. So they're saying like, hey, you're going to come back to life on the 3rd day. So it's not just like, popping out of a grave. And then the ritual says, Pepi is brought forth there where the gods are born. The star cometh on the morrow and on the 3rd day. And then Star Myth World again, destroy this temple and in 3 days I will raise it up. But he spoke of the temple of his body and obviously his spiritual body. So that's about Jesus again. And then we get to History of Magic, Eliphas Levi. This book I have not read yet. I just have a copy. It's on my wish list to read it. And it's from The Magic of the Barbarians. The power of death was suspended 3 days only, and I should have been restored to life. But your cruel curiosity makes void the miracle of nature. You are killing me a second time. So, any thoughts so far?
Maybe drugs. It's like a good fucking 3-day trip that they were all taking.
Yeah.
From the from the burning bush extract.
Right? I mean, isn't there like a lot of examples? I mean, honestly, I even in this presentation, like I didn't even put all examples in really. But what you're going to see now is that there's a direct correlation with ancient initiations and the resurrection and 3 days. And that's sort of where I started this whole thing off going, why is the initiation really 3 days long? Like they're imitating a resurrection of some sort. Like, is it that important to them that they connect the two? And then of course we're going to see that it goes way, way beyond this even, but just to get into this. So back to the secret teachings again. So this is talking about Plato. Now he was initiated into the greater mysteries, apparently at the age of 49. The initiation took place in one of the, I'm just going to pull up my slides properly here. In one of the subterranean halls of the Great Pyramid, the Isaac table formed the altar before which the divine Plato stood and received that which was always his, but which the ceremony of the mysteries enkindled and brought from its dormant state. I'm
Hey, I
reading.
got high in there. Isn't that crazy? I got high where Plato got initiated.
I'm reading this whole one because it's kind of like a good sort of kicker here, and it starts it off. So with this ascent, after 3 days in the great hall, he was received by the Hierophant of the pyramid. The Hierophant was seen only by those who had passed the 3 days, the 3 degrees, the 3 dimensions, and given verbally the highest esoteric teachings, each accompanied with its appropriate symbol. So then we go into the Attis. So this is Phrygian. Attis remained 3 days in the tomb, rose upon a date corresponding with Easter morn, and by this resurrection overcame death for all who were initiated into his mysteries. That's a bit obscure and esoteric, but it definitely combines the two. So here's the secret teachings of all ages again. Hiram represents the Christ. And this is about the mystic Christian Mason. So I don't know if the Christians will like this, but in 3 days, degrees raised the temple of his body from its earthly sepulcher. His 3 murderers were Caesar's agent, the state, the Sanhedrin, the church, and the incited populace, the mob. Thus considered, Hiram becomes the higher nature of man, and the murderers are ignorance, superstition, and fear. So that's kind of a bit obscure too. It doesn't really directly correlate. But here's again from Manly P. Hall. This is Apollonius of Tyana, the Antichrist. He's got in brackets here. Was initiated into the Arcanum of Egypt in the Great Pyramid again, where he hung upon a cross until unconscious and was laid in the tomb, the coffer, for 3 days. Now to Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine. Now this one was from 1888, 2-volume book again. Well, actually there's 3.
Hey, do you think that tomb is the same box we were lying in?
Yeah, probably. Right?
That's kind of creepy.
Imagine sitting in there for 3 days. Like, was there just a lineup to be initiated in there for 3 days? Or were they, I mean, imagine you could only initiate like 100 people a year.
3 days in there?
Without anything, just dark, like total, like sensory deprivation chamber.
Yeah, because it'd be pitch black. You wouldn't hear
Yeah.
nothing.
So this is Secret Doctrine. There's 3 volumes of this: Cosmogenesis and Anthropogenesis. Focus on the origins and development of humanity. I won't get into too many details about those books, but the candidates for initiation were placed in them for 3 days and 3 nights. Wherever there was no temple with a subterranean crypt, they built round towers for these purposes. So, I mean, this is how important this was. They're like, if there's no subterranean, we're just going to build you a tower. Again, Secret Doctrine, Volume 2. He was allowed to remain in this state for 3 days and 3 nights, during which time his spiritual ego was said to confabulate with the gods, descend into Hades, Amenti, or Patala, according to the country, and do works of charity to the invisible beings, whether souls of men or elemental spirits, his body remaining all the time in a temple crypt or subterranean cave. So she's talking about the initiated adept here who passed. Yeah. So basically tied on a couch in the form of a tau in Egypt, of a swastika with the 4 additional prolongations.
Without,
in India.
doesn't that just make a cross?
So no, that like she's saying here that this initiated adept, depending on what country they were in, they had different ceremonies, different rituals. So like in Egypt, it was like a cross, it was the form of a tau in Egypt, swastika in India, and prolonged in a deep sleep in Asia Minor, the sleep of Siloam in the Asia Minor. In Syria and even Higher Egypt, he was allowed to remain in the state for 3 days. Interesting, eh?
It's got to be drugs.
Well, I mean, the sleep, the soma would be probably considered that. So here again, these words were in their turn the anagrammatic blind of the 5 mystic powers represented on the robe of the resurrected initiate. So right here, they're talking about a resurrected initiate after his last trial of 3 days trance. So after his death, in quotes, when the adept became the full Christos, the full Krishna, Vishnu merged in nirvana. And then this is again that book that solidified the examples of these initiations for me. Here he had many experiences, part of his work being to preach to the spirits in prison. And again, the book has ancient mysteries and modern masonry. For he remained in that trance condition 3 days and 3 nights, which typified the 3 rounds and the intervals between them, during which man was going through the earlier part of his evolution and descended into matter. Then, after 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, on the morning of the 4th day, he rose again from the dead. So, again, going down into, hell, Hades, Amenta.
Well, in a trance.
Right. Same book. When the candidate had passed the probationary stage, he was clad in a robe striped with white, blue, and green, emblematic of light, truth, and hope, and confined in a cromlech tomb for parts of 3 days without food, dead in the language of the mysteries, after which he was liberated for initiation and restored to life on the 3rd day. The confinement preceded his initiation into each of the first 2 degrees. And then the same book again about the candidates in the caverns. This is crazy. So this is like they're scaring the shit out of you, right? They put him through a series of caverns where he met with practically the same experiences we have found in the other mysteries: the dark and gloomy surroundings, the pealing thunder, the howling dogs and wild beasts, the flashes of vivid light, monstrous appearances, etc. After 3 days of these terrors, he was confined in a cell for reflection. So this is like, scaring the living daylight out of you, sort of like a death, a fake death, the death of the ego. Ancient mysteries and modern masonry again, and was placed under the pastos in perfect darkness, generally for the space of 3 days and nights. So again, that return from Hades. The candidate was made to undergo these changes in scenic representation. And again, complete mastery over the lower nature was typified by placing the candidate in a trance and laying him away in a sepulcher for 3 days and nights.
What's a sepulcher?
It's like I think it's like almost like a throne type thing, or maybe not a throne, like more like an altar, but you put something inside it. Like I think those big granite boxes are sepulchers that we see in Egypt. That's kind of what I think of those things as.
Dude, I think when they say the subterranean chambers, they're talking about the Queen and the King's chamber. Plato was lying in that box.
I don't know.
It's crazy.
So this is from Secret Societies of All Ages and Countries. This is published in 1875. Another 2-volume work about religious cults, political conspiracies, and fraternal orders. The ceremonies lasted 3 days. The first one was of sadness. A cruciform pine with the image of Attis attached to it was cut down, the mutilated body of Attis having been discovered at the foot of such a tree. The second day was a day of trumpets, which were blown to awaken the god from his death-like sleep. And the 3rd day, that of joy, was the day of initiation, celebration of return to life. So here's this to me, that's a picture of some of the subterranean chambers under Egypt there. Secret societies of all ages again. So they're talking about this being in an apartment. Before him stand 3 figures dressed as devils. He then parades the room 3 times without pronouncing a word, in memory the descent into the dark places, which lasted 3 days. So definitely a thing. Here is the Great Pyramid from All Seeing Eye, the magazine. At the end of the 3 days, he returned to himself again, and having thus personally and actually experienced the great mystery, he was indeed an initiate, one who beheld and one to whom religion had fulfilled her duty by bringing him into the light of God. Arcane schools. After 2 days, the shows began with a procession, then followed for 3 days and 3 nights the mourning of Demeter for her daughter, after which a sacramental meal of cakes and liquor was partaken. So again, about a candidate desired to confess sins, bathing in the pure sea, the face of the sun. So another sort of ritual. Samothrace, the initiatory ceremony in the mysteries was 3 days and was termed enthronement. and the mystic dances represented the motions of the. So get this. Here's a hint. And that mystic dances representing the motions of the heavenly bodies were performed round the throne, which connected the rites with astronomy. So here's like a connection that you were talking about, right?
Come again?
Here's a connection you were talking about. They were dancing, connecting them with the rite with astronomy. They were dancing in the motions of heavenly bodies. So that could be, saying it. So, so here's direct commentary connecting the resurrection and initiation. So I'll just go through a few of these slides here that just prove that like this is a thing, right? From Manly P. Hall again, the all-seeing eye. From Pluto, the philosophic death of the mysteries was the true gate of initiation. And ancient mysteries and modern masonry again. The saying that the Son of Man shall remain 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth corresponds with the ancient rite, but in the gospel story of the resurrection, the interval from Friday evening to Sunday morning cannot be regarded as 3 days and 3 nights. So there was a time when they were trying to get away from the long initiations because 3 days was too long. So they tried to say that, well, and some people say it nowadays too. Well, Jesus wasn't gone for 3 days. Like he was only gone for a day and a half. Like, so they tried to change it to 27 hours instead of 72 hours. Egyptian mythology. Osiris, the god of the afterlife and agriculture, was killed by his brother Seth. His disembodied body was scattered across Egypt. After 3 days, his wife Isis managed to gather his body parts and resurrect him. The last part was the member that she found. Again, the Great Pyramid, Manly P. Hall. I don't know if I want to read this whole thing here. Oh, this is this. So here's some hints that you were talking about. So as far as can be ascertained, the king's chamber was the scene of the great climax of the initiatory drama. So here, crucified upon a St. Andrew's cross, the candidate was suspended like the solar god upon his cross of the equinoxes and solstices. After the solar crucifixion had been performed, the candidate was laid in the great stone coffin, and for 3 days his spirit, freed from its mortal coil, wandered at the gateways of eternity. His ka, which is like his soul or his spirit, as a bird, flew through the spiritual spheres of space. So there's a good one from the king's chamber. And then this is again ancient Egypt, light of the world. For after the resurrection, the initiate has become the perfect man, the master, and he goes out no more from the temple. So, look at how far away we've gotten from this, eh? This is like obviously a thing back then. Initiations to do with the resurrections of 3 days, right? Following what? The sun, following Jesus, following the moon, or was Jesus following the sun? So he's talking here about the travail in the act of giving birth to themselves. So that's kind of what this is all about, right? The spiritual awakening or the new person, right? When a man dies, he goes through the same experiences as those who have had their consciousness increased in the mysteries. And then the last one here, Eliphas Levi, the history of magic, as indicated by the history of that priest who spent 3 days in deciphering a hieratic inscription found in the tomb of Alcimene. Now, this is weird because they're talking about initiation could have been imperfect only for the priests had forgotten themselves the import of their primeval hieroglyphics. So this is weird because he's talking about like this priest who was trying to decipher the inscriptions, but it took him 3 days. So like, why 3 days? Why 3 days and all this stuff? Okay.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why 3 days. But it's still hard to, if they're all mimicking if it could still all just be them mimicking the sun stopping.
So here's okay. So I'm just seeing the notes here because I don't get to see the notes as I go through this. So
because they'd have been watching, they'd have been watching the sunrise and the sunset, It'd be moving a little bit every day, and then it stops 3 days, and then it starts going again. So are they just copying that?
Well, that's the big question, right? Are they? So is it even lunar, right? Is the new moon a 3-day resurrection? Because there's talk of the lunar as well. It's not just solar. So how are they differentiating between them? Or is it the solstices or the equinoxes? Actually, let me just see if I missed any notes here.
You mean the moon disappears for 3 days? Isn't that interesting that they
It does.
just fucking mimic each other like that? I mean,
Yeah, it does actually.
the whole thing just reeks of intelligent design.
Yeah, so the moon does it. Well, I mean, you know, it
New moon, dark sky.
it appears to, right? New moon, dark sky for 3 days, basically. Apparently,
So can you not see it during the day for? I mean, I know you.
no.
You can't.
Or is it only nighttime? That's a good question. See, that's what I don't know. That's interesting.
Because
But
it's for longer than 3 days that you can't see it at night.
is it? No, I don't think so. I think from the sliver to the sliver is 3 days.
Is it?
I think.
But then, even then, you don't see it at night. You just see it for like a minute as the sun's going down.
Right.
It kind of follows the sun down.
Yeah. So like Polymathy was saying in the chats. Oh, hang on. I'm gonna have to. Somebody's doing something outside here. I have to close the window. Just a sec.
Okay, well, this is a good one. Hey, I don't know. Graham's going to shut down the neighbor from weed whacking. This could get interesting. But yeah, 72 hours. 72 is 1 degree of a great year. 72 years would be 1 degree of a great year.
So that would be what?
Is 72 times 360 is 25,920.
Are you doing it right now?
Oh, I don't know. No, I wasn't.
72 times. I don't know. That would be interesting. What are you trying to figure out?
25,920. Oh, well, Polymath in the chat said 3 days is 72 hours, and 72 hours is one degree. 72 years would be 1 degree of a great year. I don't know what 72
Yeah,
hours.
it's 360. So you divide that great year by that, and it's 360. Yeah, that's exactly. So that's going to come up. Polymath is on. He's ahead of us here, of course, because here's the Enigma he's talking about, right? He's like 2 slides ahead of me, but he's also onto something with the 72 hours, which I didn't even realize I should put that in here. But here's the example of the solar Enigma, right? Here we see the movements of the sun over the span of a year. So it's kind of like that figure 8, right? Can you see my cursor?
I can see your cursor.
So, and here's the December solstice that you talk about at the bottom, right? So it kind of like when it goes down here, it appears to sit, right? It sort of stalls down there before it comes back around in January, February, March. And I mean, I always thought that maybe in the equinoxes as well. Like, remember you asked me the other day. It was like,
wait, so that's 1 year? That's 1 year, not a great. Yeah, so that's 1 year.
Yeah. But this bottom part is kind of where it sits. Like this bottom part here is where it kind of goes around, and then this is where they say it stops for a few days, right? That
What am I looking at? What time? So this is just a picture of the sun at a certain time of day.
Every like so. Yeah,
Every
this
day
goes.
for here.
Yeah,
Does
like
it
this
say what
picture of the
time it is?
Enigma here. The December is the bottom here, right? So that would be at the bottom, right?
Yeah, so it must be at like 4 in the afternoon or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what day this is taken, or what time.
I feel like it'd be even more pronounced where I am.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, that'll all depend on where you are, but the point being that it's that December part where it slows down and then comes back, right?
It's an infinity symbol too.
Yeah. So then it led me to the Star Myth world, right? So this is where he's talking about it exactly. And it brought me back to like 2014 here. Because it says here, the significant pause before the sun's rising point can be seen to start moving back towards the north is almost certainly the reason for the celebration of the nativity at the point of the midnight, 3 days after the death of the winter solstice. So he's talking directly about what you were saying. Midnight on the 24th of December, at the very beginning of the 25th of December. He's referencing a book called The Devil's Pulpit here. And he references a lot this guy, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, who we have some of his books on audio, but not this one, which is The Spiritual Sun and Moon from Alvin Boyd. I think I'm going to read this whole thing here. The divinity in man was typed by the sun, and the sun's yearly experience in its journeying was made the outward typograph of the experience of the spirit in mortal man. As the sun descended into the dark realm of winter, died and was buried out of sight, to be revived and raised up again to glory in the vernal equinox, so the god descended into the depths of night and winter in matter, lost his divine nature and died on the cross of incarnation, to rise again as did Osiris in Egypt on the third day in the moon. So this why the moon on the third day in the moon? The new moon was born on the third day of the dark period. And this, be it known on authority, was the origin of the 3 days during which all saviors in ancient scriptures reposed in the tomb of death. So I don't know how the moon and the sun correlate like that, but he's saying it's the moon here.
Well, I mean, the moon and the sun tend to correlate quite a bit.
So here's saying is the sun and moon together once a month descend into the dark underworld. There unite, and in 2 or 3 days the moon gives birth to their child, the new young moon. So is this just talking about the sunset though? Like the sun goes down there in the underworld every day, and sometimes the moon like once a month when the new moon happens, it goes down with the sun.
Well, it would go down right before the sun. The sliver would go down.
You know what I mean, though, right? It doesn't happen at the exact right time, but once a month at least that there is that. And then would this be a calendar of 13 months back then? Probably, right? So that maybe there is a new moon every month.
Months.
What?
13 28-day months.
Yeah. And then the new moon every month, the sun would go down with the new moon at some point. And then the sun brings back, or you know what I mean? The sun brings back the new moon. I don't know. I mean, I was trying to look up, oh man, you know what? I forgot to do it for this presentation, but I was trying to look up when the new moon happens on December 22nd or so, you know, when the actual solstice happens with the new moon. Like, would that be a special time, you know? Would the ancients see, like, I don't have any direct references to that, but it would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder where it fits on the like 18-year cycle of the moon.
Right. Exactly. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So here's ancient Egypt light of the world again, and he's talking about it. The lunar lady in her poor and lonely state goes underground or enters the waters to make her transformation and is invisible during 3 nights and days. So he says and days, which correspond to the 3 days festival at which Cinderella lost her slipper. He's just making these other references that don't really have anything to do with this. And he also says the meeting of the sun and moon in Amenta was monthly. So they met down there monthly. This is the same book again. The prayer of Jonah in the belly of the fish talks about this, but he says again, who is for 3 days and 3 nights in the lowermost depths at the time of the winter solstice. So again, this goes into Sheol, the underworld, hell, Hades, Amenta. In this legend, the belly of the fish is identical with the belly of Sheol, the womb of the underworld. And then Ancient Egypt Light of the World, Volume 2. Both solar and lunar reckonings remain but hugely gaping apart with a gulf forever fixed between the two. The Son of Man was to remain 3 nights as well as days in the heart of the earth. That is in keeping with the solar reckoning, whereas the resurrection is on the 3rd day, the same as that of Osiris and the moon.
Gape and Graham. Hey, the full moon seems to happen like every 20 to 40 years. So I would imagine the new moon would be super similar to that. Probably would make sense.
How many?
So I'll run down the last since 1800. So this is the full moon occurrences on a solstice. I'll just do winter. So 1809,
Okay. Well, go ahead. What?
1809,
Yeah.
1828, 18, which is 19 years. You're going to notice a cycle here, I think. Then 1828, then 1866, then 1885, then 1904, and then 1942 to 1961 to 1980 to 1999
Yeah.
to 2010
So the
to
new moon.
2094.
So the new moon would be 2010, 20 what? 2010 to then 2020, 29. Yeah, 19 years. Yeah, and Polymath is saying the metatonic cycle, sun and moon, is 19 years or 235 lunations.
I thought it was 18.6, but that sounds close.
Yeah. And then North Star says the rising sun, man, and the dying sun, man, two big rituals. He's talking about summer, winter solstice. Yeah. So then would you say the new moon is in between those, like right in between them?
I would say right in between them, but I'm just trying to find another chart.
Yeah, it's funny. There's not a lot. Most of it's about full moons. There's not a lot. There's not a lot to. It's not easy to find the new moon.
But I think it would be right in between those.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So here's some weird ones. This is getting into the deluge a little bit too. And wait till you see the rest of this. I mean, geez, you're gonna get blown away by the time this is done here. This is only still in like the where am I? The resurrection and initiation part. So again, the Egyptian deluge and the so-called destruction of mankind is described as continuing for 3 nights and 3 days. The time measured by 3 days' length, navigation through a deluge of blood. Now, 3 days and nights is the length of time that was computed for the monthly absence of the moon in the netherworld. So yeah, that's the lunar confirmation again. And here again, the virgin birth, talking about descent into Hades and the resurrection in 3 days, or on the third day, are all Egyptian, all in the ritual. He keeps thinking, Gerald Massey thinks everything's from the ritual, which is the Book of the Dead is what he means. This is from Blavatsky. They're typified by the 3 days passed in hell before his resurrection by Hercules, by Christ, and others. So this is like talking about this pagan thought emblematized by the rites of the resurrection of Osiris, Adonis, Bacchus, and other slaughtered sun gods, the resurrection of all nature in spring, the germination of seeds that had been dead and sleeping during winter. So I'm going to try and get through these. Like, I don't want to waste too much time in this section here, but The Light of Egypt, I haven't read this book. It's one that's kind of on the list. The sun enters the sign of Capricorn on the 21st of December. This is the lowest point of that arc. That's that Enigma arc. South, and for 3 days he is stationary or in darkness, and now it is Christmas Eve. So he's saying that same thing there. Same book, the 3 days in the tomb or the 3 months. So that they're talking about 3 months. So some people are saying the 3 months is the 3 days, which would be from the solstice to the equinox, right?
3 months.
Equinox to solstice. So
3 months is a long time to be dead.
yeah, exactly. This is back to the secret teachings of all ages, talking about like seasons here. So among the northern peoples, hell was the land of cold and darkness, ruled over by a great gloomy spirit that resembled a block of ice. As winter approached, then the sun, the father of the gods, descended into the underworld or the grave, there to remain for 3 symbolic days, in reality months, before he finally escaped from the darkness and reborn. Began on the 25th of December his victorious march north, with its attendant increase of light and strength. So he's saying that starts, the 3 months starts on the equinox in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like the next time the new moon is on the solstice is 2033. But I don't know. I have to double check that now, because there's a couple days, like in 2023 it was the 22nd, in 2027 it was the 22nd. So let me see.
Right.
So 2023 was the 22nd. 2023 the new moon was on the 12th, so not that one. What was the other year?
7, maybe.
No, wasn't that, was it? Anyway.
So
It looks like it's 2033 will be officially be the next time the new moon is on. Oh, 2027. Yeah, you're right. So that in 2027, the new moon is on December 27th. So the next time that the new moon actually lands on the solstice will be December 21st, 2033.
2033. Okay, interesting. So this last quote here in this section is just from Manly P. Hall. I don't think I'll read the whole thing, but it is again sort of combining the initiation, the seasons, the spiritual understanding of that, and the resurrection, and the soul or the sun apparently standing still for 3 days. So he kind of combines it all here. So now we get into some interesting, like ancient and esoteric reasoning for this, like for what happens during this 3 days, like not from a solar perspective, but from a human perspective or a spiritual perspective.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Do you
Maybe there's a connection here with the awakenings. This is some strange or maybe not so strange examples about what the ancients and occultists thought about this 3 days in terms of resurrection, at least, or after death.
so hey, before you go too far, do you know when the last time the new moon was on the solstice was?
No.
1995. It was December 22nd. December 22nd, 1995. So it looks like the solstice was on the 22nd in 1995 at 8:14 a.m. UT Universal Time, and the this other chart I'm looking at is also Universal Time, and the new moon was on December 22nd at 2:22 Universal Time.
Wow.
So yeah, that was what, like around when you got sober? No, we were still both. I was too young to be part of it.
I was just starting.
You're just warming up.
All right, so here's some ancient and esoteric reasoning, which I figure is just worth talking about. So this is from the Magus Francis Barrett. Now I haven't read this, but this is a book from like early 1800s, so this goes way back, and he kind of synthesizes all these other volumes into his one that talks about esotericism, astrology, alchemy, divination, ceremonial magic, and the Kabbalah. So he says for corporeal and spiritual things consist of 3 things. So this is really not directly related, but he's just saying that 3 is the magic number, basically. Prayers and sacrifices are thrice repeated. This number conduceth to the ceremonies of God and religion. So kind of just indirect. This is from the Rosicrucian Mysteries from Max Heindel. This was published in 1911. Explores the teachings and mysteries of the Rosicrucian order, mystical and esoteric movement that originated in Europe during the 17th century. So the depth chamber should be a place of the utmost quiet, a place of peace and of prayer, for at that time and for 3½ days after the last breath, the spirit is passing through a Gethsemane and needs all the assistance that can be given. So the weird thing about these examples is like they're acknowledging this 3 days again. And somehow, like, I don't know, why are we acknowledging it now? But they seem to know that there's 3 days, something was going on after death. From The Secret Doctrine, whether Milton's grandiose description of the 3 days battle of angels of light against those of darkness justifies the suspicion that he must have heard the corresponding Eastern tradition is impossible to say. So battles of angels of light against darkness for 3 days. Secret Doctrine, the dev obsesses the soul of the defunct for 3 days. So she's talking about the soul wandering about that spot at which it was forcibly separated from its body for 3 days. Now, this is like a really weird one. So this is an answer and questions chapter in All Seeing Eye, that magazine, right? What effect has cremation on the spirit? Cremation, about 3 days after death, immediately destroys the body, severs the last tie between the higher organisms and its form, and in that way frees the spiritual bodies to go on with their work. So they were even, cremating to sever the last tie. And here's that same magazine, an advertisement. Get this: refrigeration of body, preferred esotericists. by the Reed brothers. So these guys had a funeral company. They were refrigerating bodies because the occultists, the esotericists, they here it says, according to students of esotericism, for the complete and gradual disentanglement of the higher vehicles of man from his earthly body. As there are many who do not care for embalming, the refrigeration method has come to be preferred by them. So where's the three? Oh, yeah. By means of a refrigerated chest, the body is perfectly preserved for the 3 days which are necessary. So, I mean, they were building refrigerations for the 3 days. This is Modern Magic from Shel DeVere, 1876, a book. I don't like this description of the book. It's wrong. Anyways, so he's talking about the armies continued even after the battle, that for 3 days the spirits of the fallen were contending with each other with unabated fury. Another spiritual sort of demonic battle for 3 days. And then History of Magic from Eliphas Levi. There were meetings and still meetings, both evening and morning. These were processions for 3 days and 3 nights. Fasts were imposed on the priests. Houses were visited by them. So they were taking this precaution. It was pretended that the devil would have been taken by surprise and would not have attempted to return. So this is talking about, meeting, I think, in the other realm. So what do you think about that? Interesting or kind of weird?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Seems acknowledged. So, I mean, so keep going. This is like,
did they refrigerate the body to go back into it, or did you just don't want the body to rot for 3 days until the soul is gone?
I know. Yeah. And like, then it makes you think about the Egyptians, right? How much work they did to embalming and all that stuff, and how much care they took into it. Like,
yeah, that's weird.
so, I mean, it goes on to a whole other level here. Now, I combined a bunch of these things. Let me see. I'm not too sure where I've combined these because there's so many, but let's just continue on here. So this is now, there's a whole whack of examples of ancient healing and prophecy as well. So not just resurrection, not just initiation, but again, from some of these same books. So this one combines everything here, but it's Gerald Massey again. The healing was then a mystery of the resurrection. So he's talking about healing and the resurrection. The same in the canonical as in the Egyptian Gnostic gospel. The same in both as in the Book of the Dead or ritual of the resurrection. 3 days was the length of time allowed for the burial in Amenta. This would constitute a 3 days fasting of the dead. So he's saying that also means fasting. So the 3 days that you're gone in Amenta is a 3 days fast. So this is from again Gerald Massey. 3 days is the full period, and this is the length of time over which the miracles of healing were extended, and during which the multitude with Jesus had nothing to eat, because they were with him in the valley of Amenta. Then the 3 days fast was ended by the feeding of the multitude of what the ritual terms celestial diet. Isis unveiled. This was talking about a dragon, the venomous stench, and he basically had a thorn in his eye, and he had to go to the saint's pillar and press his eye against it for 3 days. Secret teachings of all ages. 3 days before the time set to receive communications from Apollo, the virgin priestess began the ceremony of purification. So talking about these healing prophecies and History of Magic from Anna Moser. This is about, again, one of those weird healings, and take these things for 3 days mixed with honey, and the man became sound. So there's this 3-day healing. The History of Magic, again, white cock with milk, bathe your eyes for 3 days, and behold, he received his sight. So again, 3 days. And there wasn't I'm telling you, I read these books, right? From beginning to end. There's not 5 days, 4 days, 6 days. Of course, there's going to be the odd one, but for the most part, it's all 3 days. So this is about Socrates, in which this beautiful woman addressed him in the line of Homer. After 3 days wilt thou arrive at the shadowy Pythia, his home. And so it was. It happened that he dreamt 3 days before his death that he saw a fluttering bird, and afterwards that a woman appeared to him in white apparel and said to him, prepare to die. You will not exist in 3 days. The magic, the magus from Francis Barrett cures him in 3 days again. So it's another like cure of 3 days. This is back to the Star Myth World from David Matheson. The fasting, the 3 days fast is emblematic of the 3 days in the bleak underworld without the sustenance of the solar light, the divine bread of life. And then this is about Jesus, who said, "Go to that fox. Behold, I cast out devils and I do cures today and tomorrow. And on the third day, I shall be perfected." So, I mean, even to describe more, there's ancient fasting. So this is where, to me, it really starts to ring like resonant with what we're doing today. So this going back to ancient emerald tablets of Thoth. So this is again all
you
three.
can't, there's not a lot of people crucifying themselves for 3 days in the Great Pyramid and then getting dumped into the coffin.
Right.
Do you think they actually nailed him? Or they must have just tied him up? Is it still called crucified if you're just tied up?
Yeah, man.
You just have to be attached to the cross, not nailed to it?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Probably. I feel like
well, yeah, because it was it was only an initiation. They weren't gonna really try and kill you.
this is all before Christ, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, is Plato? Yeah, Plato be before Christ, right? BC.
Yeah, so this is from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? The 3 days, eat not food until 3 days are past. Come to the chamber beneath my temple. I mean, I think we're really underestimating the amount of healing temples and fasting and dream work and stuff.
Why was Plato being crucified before Christ?
No, Plato wasn't in there. That was a different quote. Plato didn't.
Plato got initiated in the Great Pyramid, it said.
Yeah, but not necessarily on the cross.
Yeah. Not crucified.
Yeah.
I feel like he was crucified.
This is from the Oracle of Delphi. I mean, maybe he was. I mean, this is like, I think this is so underrated. What we know.
I'd be more surprised to find out he wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, you see that most crucifix were tied and not nailed. Graham, we could crucify you.
There you go.
After you do my wedding.
Yeah.
Then we'll crucify you for the reception.
Yeah.
And then we'll let you down after it's consummated.
So here's Oracles of Delphi. Again, underrated. 3 days before the time set to receive the communications from Apollo, the virgin priestess commenced the ceremony of purification.
Was Oracles of Delphi was part of All Seeing Eye? Was it like one of those books within it? Because I remember there was some chunks. I've been meaning to ask you, and this is probably not the place to do it, but I'm going to forget. Should some of that be released on its own? Some of those books be pulled out.
What do you mean books?
Well, there were some parts of the All-Seeing Eye fucking ongoing thing that went to like chapters, you know?
Oh, I did. Yeah,
like
those are all
5-hour books.
Yeah, those are all. Yeah, they can be released on their own. Yeah,
they're probably worth releasing on their own. Like Oracles of Delphi is a book, isn't it? Like,
no, I don't think that is. I don't. But there are some. I can go through all the notes and find them. There's a few fiction. There's some mini fiction stories, right? Some short story fiction ones, and then there's some like 2 or 3 parters. Like Oracles of Delphi might have a 2 or 3 parter. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, because the All-Seeing Eye is super overwhelming for anyone to look at. It's like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 80. It was the longest book we ever did. I can't remember how long it was. It was like 79 or something hours. It's the longest one we've ever done. And we got some fucking doozies.
Yeah.
Because the combined works of it was 45 hours or something like this. And the All-Seeing Eye was a fair bit longer than that. Actually, I think it's 7 YouTube videos. So over 60 hours. Over 72 hours.
Yeah. Did you put them out in those big chunks then?
Not yet. Okay. No, dude.
They're in by the month. They're in small chunks.
Yeah, we've got them all in small chunks. I've got them made and mastered as big chunks just for sometime. Yeah. They'll come in handy sometime. There's like 50 things just sitting.
Yeah.
50 or 60 books just waiting to go.
Yeah. So then the ceremonies of the sick from Enigma again, he says they had to observe the greatest abstinence for several days. They fast several days, remain from drinking wine. Oropus, for instance, there was a law-abiding wine for 3 days, forbidding wine for 3 days and food for 24 hours. So there was a lot of people saying don't drink for 3 days here. Ceremonies of the sick, again, these are baths, fasting for 3 days, solitary residence of the sanctum. So weird, right? I mean, history of the supernatural, the dream tree, that's the chapter. I promised my grandfather this, but unfortunately I did not keep my promise. For 3 days I bore lying and hunger and thirst. But when I descended from the tree into the grass on the 4th day, I saw the acid and refreshing leaves of a little herb growing near that tree. It's just a story about
You
this
think
guy.
it's hard to do 3 days with nothing, or like a month with fucking nothing during the day, like the Muslims?
Oh yeah, no, the month would be easy. 3 days, either or.
I don't know. It looked pretty rough when it was in June, man.
Yeah, that's
You can't
true.
drink water or eat until like fucking 10:30 at night. Then you
Yeah.
got to be done by 3 in the morning or whatever it is. Like, God.
Yeah. And here again about Jesus here, I have compassion for the multitude because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. I would not send them away fasting. Thus 3 days are allotted to the work of healing in the mount, during which time the multitude were fasting in the company of Jesus and his disciples. In the ritual, these are not only the fasting, they are also deprived of breath. So, I mean, I don't know what that means. In the ritual of the resurrection, you're deprived of breath for 3 days. I mean, so the last one,
So high. That's why, because you're so high.
the last one here from the Magus, I would advise him to abstain 1 whole day from meat and 3 days from wine or any strong liquors, nothing but pure water. So, I mean, there's this whole healing thing. Okay, this is where I started combining it all because I wanted to shorten up the presentation a bit, right? Because it got overwhelming. Like there was these time frames in here too. So there's like ancient travel times and time frames. I was like, how is there so many references to 3 days? And again, there's not all these other references, right? So again, like star myth of the world, refuge for 3 days or 3 months, hide themselves for 3 days till the pursuers return. Like what? Why are people talking about 3 days? The Epic of Gilgamesh. They sailed without stopping for 3 days and nights, a 6 weeks journey for ordinary men. They had traveled for just 3 days and nights. I mean, so this Epic of Gilgamesh kept repeating over and over. They sailed for 3 days. They walked for 3 days. Like, why? It can't just be a coincidence, right? I mean, it can't just be like they chose 3 days when they were writing it. Like, it's got to
I
mean.
haven't read the Epic of Gilgamesh, but what if it's like a translation problem?
Maybe, yeah.
Like
Maybe.
like Lou in the chat says 3 dies, 3 dias. But walking with 3 gods, but I wonder if it could be just a weird mistranslation that actually all means some other thing. The 3 days does line up with an awful lot of stuff though, and we built an awful lot of stuff to like watch the moon with and watch the sun with and watch the solstices.
Yeah.
Especially the solstices when shit is not moving for 3 days.
Yeah. So I combined a lot of these quotes here in the books that I found them in, because there's a compilations here of various texts. I'm just going to whip through it so I don't waste your time. But this is from Isis Unveiled in Genesis, creates light, and 3 days and 3 nights are alleged to pass before he creates the sun. And then they talk about Jesus in the temple, rebuild it in 3 days. And then later on there, but 3 days later, not having seen his friend and entertainer. So there's all these weird references. Every member of the community has to absent himself from home for 3 days. And then we go on to like ancient Egypt, light of the world. Look at all the references of 3 days in that. I mean, like it just navigation 3 days, the solar god 3 days, of course. After 3 days, they discovered him in the temple, sitting in the midst of doctors. 3 days of navigation. These are a bunch of various ones from like Theosophy, a modern revival of ancient wisdom, from the Magus, from modern magic. Again, just 3 day references. Abstinence, space for 3 days of operation. Sacrifice. There was some about the sacrifice. This was a human sacrifice. It seemed like they roasted people and spit on slowly and roasted them over a fire of coals, one after the other. but so that not a second's pause occurred between the death of one and the sufferings of the next. This horribly absurd sacrifice had to be continued for 3 days and nights, during which the magician...
Can you imagine smelling all that barbecue and not being able to eat?
Yeah, exactly. The magician was not allowed to take any food or drink. And then here's another compilation from History of Magic and the Secret Teachings of All Ages. More about the 3 days. 3 days later, he died. 3 days journey betwixt himself and Jacob, in the space for 3 days together. The last couple here. So, Star Myth World. Let's see here. Let them wash their clothes and be ready for the third day. For on the third day, the Eternal will descend upon the mountain of Sinai in the sight of all the people. So this is where it takes a turn. So do you remember this episode with Vinnie Tolman?
No, but yes, I guess 594. So that wasn't that long ago, like a year and a half.
This is like, yeah, a year ago, pretty much.
Was
A year
I
and a
there
bit.
for it?
Yeah.
Vinnie Coleman.
So Vinnie Tolman, like this blew me away, right? Because I was sort of all this stuff was ruminating in my head. I was thinking about putting it all down. And it started to click to me that there's something more than all this ancient stuff. So in January 2003, Vinnie Tolman was found dead in the bathroom of a small restaurant. He had been dead for over a half hour. When paramedics arrived, they put him in a body bag and took him away. The rookie paramedic had a feeling to risk his career, break all the protocols, and try to resuscitate Vincent. Miraculously, he restarted Vincent's heart, and Vincent was in a coma for
3 days.
Yeah. Vincent remembers what happened on the other side while he was dead, and he's ready to share his experience. The light after death, my journey to heaven and back, is the incredible true story of how Vincent died, the lessons he learned, his visit to heaven, and how his experience had affected his life since then. So that was like, and I asked him, I'm like, is this a thing? And he's like, it's a thing. 3 days is a thing in modern NDEs. Remember
Really?
that?
I don't remember 3 days being a thing in modern NDEs.
No, with him. Do you remember? You don't remember me asking him at all?
I do remember the Vinnie Tolman. I remember the dead dude, yeah, and the paramedic story and all that. This is a good episode. People should go check that out if they haven't heard it.
So I went to international. So I went to where his association there, right? That he helps with, or that he's part of, International Association for Near Death Studies, right? I'm like, just on a hunch. I'm like looking up like examples. So I go through all the stories, right? There's a database of all the stories there. And you're not going to believe it. Like story after story, 3 days. This is modern accounts of NDEs. There was maybe a couple of 1 day, of course, 1 day, right? People are going to wake up after 1 day, but there wasn't 5 days, 4 days, 6 days, anything, but there's example after example here. So ended up going into a coma on and off, in and out for 3 days. I was mostly out in like the dreamlike place in a room with no real walls or floor or ceiling. And then here's another one here. God knew I could only handle so much, but one thing for sure, God's love is more powerful than evil's power. After 3 days, I came out of my unconsciousness. And here's another one. These are all from this modern thing. Tamara had seen heaven a few times, including spending 3 days with Jesus while in a coma when she was 5 years old. The vehicle landing on frozen ground due to the temperature's loss of blood was minimal, but I was out of body NDE for 3 days. Life scrolled by me all at once. I'm not ready to die yet and return to my body. 3 days later, while lying in a hospital bed, I felt and saw the presence of a beautiful angel in a dream with her arms raised. And this one here is interesting. It is of vital importance that this actually occurred in Earth's time 3 days after he had passed. However, in eternity, there are no confines of time and space like years. So this is about like of my son from this earthly life to the other side. I could know what he was thinking. When I went into my room, I slept for 3 days. When I woke up, I wasn't me anymore. I've never been that person since. I mean, that sounds like an initiation, right? Or a long NDE when people come back with special powers, or people would come to the house and I could see up and down alongside of me a few times and leaves. I wake up in the hospital being told later I was in a coma for 3 days. The whole time I was in my experience, I've been sleeping in a coma that lasted for 3 days. Time to return. I was afraid of the noise. I was told it would not do me any harm and I would be okay. I was in a coma for 3 days. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? How many of these? So I talk about time passage, approximately 6 months, equal to 2 or 3 days. I woke up to find at least 2 people by my bed. I was told that I had suffered no permanent brain damage and that I'd been totally unconscious for about 3 days. So here's some about prophecy. I mean, so it even goes into like prophecy and stuff too, right? 3 days later, they were in an accident. I began reliving my NDE for 3 days while on a spiritual retreat. There's not too many more here, but just to give you the idea. I got the news. I helped to clean up the apartment. And 3 days later, he came back to me in the house. 3 days prior to my drug overdose, I had a dream that spirits were circling around my body and there was a whirling sound.
3 days.
Yeah.
3-day benders.
Exactly. I had to stay in the golden warm light with this healing rope for 3 days. When I went into my room, I slept for 3 days. So it's almost done here, but just to sort of tie it up here, why 3 days, 72 hours, like that guy in the chats mentioned, right? 72 hours. What is happening? And, now that we know that hours, like the hour time is sacred, right? It's part of the sacred system, right? What does our current day science show? Like, did the ancients know this? Like, what came first, the science or the natural cycle? Like, if we're saying this is based on a natural cycle, right? What came first? Is the science based on a natural cycle? Or is the cycle effect or cause the science? Do you know what I mean? Or is it just a coincidence that the ancients were following the moon and the sun and it matches exactly? Because do we know, like, there's the modern 3-day fast, right? 72 hours. I mean, people talk about it all the time. A 72-hour fast or fasting for 3 consecutive days without any food intake can help your body enter a state of ketosis. So after that 3 days, the depletion of glycogen stores, insulin levels drop, ketone production increases, fat breakdown accelerates, ketosis is established. Other physiological changes at the 72-hour mark. Increased production of HGH, increased production of norepinephrine, decreased production of cortisol, increased autophagy. What else? And another study, so these are studies too. Researchers found that fasting for 72 hours can reset the entire immune system, allowing stem cells to proliferate and rebuild the immune system. Results from a small clinical trial found that after 72 hours of water-only fasting, autophagy levels of leukocytes were enhanced through upregulation of upstream signaling, and apoptosis was reduced through the downregulation of apoptic gene expression. So, I mean, when I was putting this together, I found a couple random posts on X, right? 72 hours is a magic number for autophagy. Your fast time should depend on your goal on purpose or purpose for the fast. And then keep going. 72 hours is the magic feeling. Hard to explain. I mean, this was just a coincidence that I found these two right when I was putting the presentation together.
Huh.
Abstinence and withdrawal. At around 72 hours of abstinence, the body has reached a critical point where the withdrawal symptoms peak. The 72-hour mark is a critical point in the withdrawal process where the body is trying to readjust to the absence of alcohol. So, I mean, it kind of puts these ancient things in like a weird modern scientific thing, right? I mean, they're talking about fasts and abstinence. The circadian rhythms, like they reach a critical point because it allows your SCN to reset its internal clock and adjust to the new rhythm. After 72 hours of consistency, your SCN, your suprachiasmatic nucleus starts to synchronize with the external environment. So it seems like there's something here, right? Gut biome changes even. A new study published Wednesday in Nature indicates that these changes can happen incredibly fast in the human gut within 3 or 4 days, a big shift in what you eat. We found that the bacteria that lives in people's guts is surprisingly responsive to change in diet. And then the last one, fast swimming sperm can last up to 72 hours.
Well, they must be going in circles. I mean, they only got to go like 6 inches.
So, like, is this a great example of being in sync with nature all the way down from the sun and the moon, or is it merely allegorical and the ancients use this for symbolic power? But if so, what about the modern science that follows it? Like, were the resurrections, the supposed real ones, just initiations, or were the initiations built upon the resurrections? Like, is there a connection with the three as in so many other things, like theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity in the original world, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? Like, what? You know? This, like, did that science not show? Like, did the ancients just know inherently that like 72 hours is the magic time?
Well, maybe we just made it the magic time because of all the focus on 72 hours.
Like, right. I mean, what came first, right? Or is it because of the solar thing? Like, you know how it always comes back to when you asked Randall that question way back when about this. Like, I've been thinking about this with all the synchronicities that like Malcolm and Randall talk about, the sun and the moon and the time and everything, right? Maybe that is just what that cyclical nature is. And it goes down to those levels of like our cells and stuff, right? There is a real 3-day resonant science with the cosmic cycles.
I wonder if it lines up with the solar ones.
What do you mean?
Like, can it be any 3 days? Or should you do your fast at the solstice?
Yeah. Interesting, right? Like what? Yeah. What? We're not even like close to doing that yet. But I mean, why aren't we looking at all this? They were looking at this thousands of years ago. They knew about all this. And like, or new moon fast, right? Like, why aren't we doing new moon stuff?
Well, why don't you try that and then try the solstice fast and then see if that, I mean, in 2033, you can do the solstice new moon fast. And maybe you'll turn into Thoth.
2033. Yeah, exactly.
I know another Thoth that might fight you then. I might not want the competition.
Christy Crinkle, 3 days, no sleep equals shadow people. Exactly. Yeah. I've seen them, Christy.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Through my blinds with the TV on 1, and it was still too loud.
Squinting through because the cops are coming. Fucking, it's like Sunday.
The tree people were there. Yeah, people looking out through windows, and
it's like Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's about it. Is it interesting? Is it all right, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I like the PowerPoint presentation part of it. It's very Randall Carlson-esque. I've been thinking lately, all this stuff, whenever I come across a bookmark or something, that's the way to do it, is just put that quote or that page or that paragraph on a PowerPoint, and it becomes very easy to present down the road.
Exactly, because it did take me a while to import all this into there. But if I was doing it,
but now you just have it forever for either your own research to go back to. Oh, here it is. Now when you go back to check your solstice or your 3-day work, you can just sort of go down and be like, ding, ding, ding. Okay, here it is. Here's the thing I was looking for. Otherwise, you'd never find that shit.
But can you? Does it seem right to you that all this is coming from solar lunar? Like that there's that many references to 3 days just from that?
Yeah.
Really? Was that important back then? But we just lost all this now. Like we don't even pay attention to any of it nowadays. Like
that's how long you can go without water too. It's like the max, you know. It's basically the max you could. I mean, I need these motherfuckers say they're drinking sunlight and shit like that. But for most people, everybody I've met, you go about 3 days without water. Day 4, you're dead.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it that you kind of maxed out the total fast, I think. I mean, I know people will say, well, this dude fasted for fucking 50 days with no water and nothing. Must have been awful humid where he was. But because if you try that shit here, you'll be dead. I mean, maybe it's something to do with that. 3 days is as long as you can. So even if you were in some weird, crazy drug state where you were completely unconscious for 3 days, maybe to the point that if people did it on their own, they're so close to death that people won't be able to tell they're dead if they come in the room, and they'll bury their asses.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing. What about all the NDEs?
That would have a 3-day max on it as well. That would have a 3-day sort of max on it. Now,
right.
it wouldn't have a 3-day max on the NDEs because the doctors have a hold of you at that point. But
Right, exactly. But the actual, oh man, it's so interesting that
the
there's
fact
all
that both the sun and the moon, 13 times a year, the moon disappears for 3 days, and twice a year the sun stops for 3 days.
well, does it at twice a year? Does it where else does it stop? In
Stop-
June then?
stops here in like 2 weeks. Yeah.
Does it though?
Yes. Yeah, it's 3 days on each end for what it is. If space works the way they tell us, then the Earth has to, it can't just ding ding. It's like right now the Earth is tilting we're tilting down. I guess the northern hemisphere is tilting south for another 2 weeks, and then I feel like if it just started tilting back in the other direction, so if you really look at and this is what makes me really believe that we don't live on a flat plane, because I'm watching the fucking sunrises and sunsets, like that's something I do as a hunter. I keep a real close eye on sunrise and sunset from I don't really care in August and September, but by end of September, you're looking
Me
at
too,
first light, last light, because your hunt starts 30 minutes before, and it's illegal to shoot before that or after that. So your whole sort of duck hunting or deer hunting or whatever you're hunting, it's you're kind of all set up around. Even if you're hunting all day, last lights, the last 30 minutes after the sun is set, that's your fucking heyday. That's
Yeah.
if you're going to shoot something 9 times out of 10, it's going to be in then. So your whole day is sort of set up around this last. So I'm watching it. And so that's why if you watch the sun, if you look like right now, when we get to the closer we get to the solstice, if you start watching the sunrise time and the sunset time, you'll notice that by the time you get to like right down in the, which is like a couple of seconds a day, you're gaining, 20 seconds in the evening or 20 seconds in the afternoon, down to like 7 seconds and 3 seconds in some instances a day. Like nothing. You know what I mean? On either end. But if you look at the equinoxes in March and September, 7 minutes, man. You're gaining 3 or 4 minutes on either side. So in a week, you gain an hour, almost a full hour of sunlight. Like so, and that's when the Earth is really fucking moving, and it has to. So if you just tried in September to fucking let's go back the other way, that's like when you get. I don't know what happens, but we would notice that. I feel like, what I mean. The whole thing is sort of hits max speed in September, end of September. October, it's slowing down. November, it's slowing down.
Yeah, right.
December, when the days are shortest is when you're really watching. It's like, God, when are the days going to get longer? Well, it gets, by December, the sun don't really fucking move for 3 days, and then it still takes fucking 2 weeks before you even really notice a difference.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So,
for 2 weeks on either side, nothing's really happening.
So to answer your polymathing and your question, like Polymath says, I probably agree with D. It really was that important, it seems. Now he's talking about the lunar and the solar influence. But what I guess what doesn't reconcile for me is the modern and the ancient NDEs. So you can see the initiations, the travel time, maybe the old stories, like the resurrections being the old like the mythological stuff, the deities, like all that being based on the lunar and solar. But what about all the ancient NDEs and the modern NDEs? Like, is that just a completely separate category?
Could be that your subconscious body knows 3 days is the max. If this dude, outside of the fact that now you're in a hospital, which is a very small sample of human existence, where you can be dead for all intents and purposes and not actually be dead in 4 days. You know what I mean? So it's like all of your evolution says that you need to drink water every 3 days at a minimum. So
but
I
is
can
that tied
see
to
where
the solar? Is that tied to solar? But I'm saying, is that tied to the solar?
Oh, I don't know about that. That's way more philosophical than I've got a degree for. But I could see in layman, as a layman, where subconsciously your body wouldn't really let you NDE any longer than that.
Yeah, right.
It's like, hey man, your actual like all your other shit starts kicking in where it's like, hey man, wake up, motherfucker, wake up. You got to get up now. You got to get up. It's either get up or die. Those are your options, you know?
And then there's those weird explanations by them that the angels and darkness fight for 3 days, or your the Gethsemane thing for 3 days, you know? So there is that weird like thing.
I mean, it could be
spiritual significance to it.
Maybe if it happens for longer than that, you know, maybe every once in a while the sun don't move for 4 days, and that's the year that the comet hits, or, you know, these motherfuckers were watching shit for reasons that I think are like, I really resonate with that post-cataclysm reality stuff where it's like, okay, man, this is happening, you know. They knew about some crazy cycle that ended their civilization that we haven't figured out. And they don't know what it is anymore either, but that's why they were all watching these solstices and stuff so important. It was like tracking, it's like ancient timekeeping.
Well, dude, the Vedic numbers, Malcolm has, it's all part of Malcolm's equation. Those long Vedic numbers for the years, right? Like the whole solar system moving.
But what does it even matter,
kind of
dude?
Calculations at that long term too, right?
But
That
then when you get into the stuff where the fucking amount of seconds in the day are the same as the fucking diameter of the sun in miles, and the amount the moon moves, and the speed of the moon is the same as the diameter of the moon in miles. I mean, dude, when you start getting into that shit, then I mean, how is it not intelligent design at that point?
Right, exactly. Like Polymathing says, it's either a beautiful weave in the tapestry or some heavyweight epic masonry fuckery, Masonic fuckery. Yeah, that's why the question is so interesting to me. It's like either way,
it's the same thing. It's either they're making up the numbers to match, because the seconds in the day isn't. Neither of those two things are subjective.
Yeah.
Neither of those two. The amount of seconds in the day is the amount of fucking seconds in the day. That's, you know.
Yeah.
You could argue, well, sunrise to sunset or this and that, but if you just go on the time the fucking Earth spins around one full rotation, no matter where you are on it, the top or the bottom, the middle, still takes the 24 hours. Might be going faster at the equator to get the full 24 hours than I am halfway up to get the full 24 hours, but it's still 84,000 seconds or whatever the fuck it is. And that's the same amount as the miles on the moon. I mean, it's just these weird sacred numbers are either from the gods or fucking made up. And the gods could be the programmers or the computer simulation or whatever it is. But I don't know. Gods makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're alien, but
because if you have computer simulations, you just got to keep going back. Then what made them?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Have you seen those pictures of the sun recently? The close-up ones on X that some people are taking, like from their backyard, basically, like super crazy close-up picture of the sun. Like it just doesn't even look the same anymore. It doesn't even look like what they think is this ball of fire, right? It looks more like a living entity or something. I don't know. You haven't seen those?
No, I'm trying to stay off of X again. I just noticed my blood pressure. It just makes me angrier. You know,
I know.
Don't need it, and not even just like not angrier. Not because I'm not angrier, but it's just like in that moment when I'm on there, it's like I'm getting frustrated about things that I wouldn't be frustrated about if I wasn't on Twitter.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And I don't run into the same problems on Instagram and stuff, you know, because it's just like Instagram seems more like just a fun time for me, honestly. You know, like I'm going there. It's not throwing stuff at me that I want to fucking get upset about. It's just throwing stuff at me that I mostly agree with. For the most part, it's memes I agree with and reels that I think are funny. And
I know. I was
Twitter,
watching.
I feel like is actively trying to piss me off.
Oh, I know. I was watching some government, like some of our actual media.
Dude, I'll unfollow some motherfuckers because I'm like, I've had enough of this guy. I can't. I'm not going to name any names here, but you know, I'm just like, he's a nice guy, but I just can't handle his Twitter feed. And I'll unfollow him, and it'll just keep throwing him at me.
Even though you've unfollowed him?
even though I've unfollowed him, because then I'll have to go, because if you'll notice there's a little toggle at the top where you can switch from following to for you, and it'll just keep changing that thing back to for you if you don't
Oh.
actively change it.
Well, I always stay on the For You. That's it.
Yeah, so that means it doesn't care about who you're following anymore. Now it's
Right.
just about
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it thinks you'll fucking interact with. And
Yeah.
what are you most likely to interact with? Shit that makes you fucking angry. Something you like, you just throw a like on, maybe a repost, but it's what's this motherfucker saying? You cocksucker. Now you're fucking commenting and
I don't know.
starting going. I see you out in the wild too, Dunlop.
I don't argue that much. I mainly agree on things. I don't know if I'm attracted to the ones that piss me off, but
I'm not attracted to. What do you mean?
I know it. Well, you were just explaining that how that works. So I mean, I was watching some government stuff and that's what was happening to me. I was getting all frustrated. I'm like, oh my god, they're so far away. The government is so far away from where we want them right now. It's unbelievable. Like they're accusing the other government of things. You're just like, oh my god, it's so bad.
Yeah, and the other government's a bunch of idiots too. That's what we gotta remember, is that they're fucking. I mean, that's the thing that pisses me off about half the channels I follow, is they're just fucking Pierre fucking Polivier bootlickers, and I'm like, you fucking guys don't get it.
Yeah,
you don't get it. It'll be nice. It'll be a nice little change and slow down in direction. But I mean, the dude still, the pride flags aren't fucking going anywhere. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we get out of here then?
Yeah, let's wrap it up, I guess. Yeah, thanks for putting up with that. That was fun.
Yeah, that was good. I got some stuff in the. I mean, honestly, dude, it's been almost a full year of trying to correct the audiobook problem. We were just getting into taking on some other stuff, doing some YouTube shorts and some video stuff, and maybe start doing some presentations.
Yeah, right.
I've done the whole in their own words thing as a presentation, and do some filmmaking or get some presentations together. But then the rug got pulled out of us, and I was just thinking about it the other day, because I'm like, well, shit, it was like the last week of July, so we're like, 6 or 8 weeks away from it being a full year, and we're just getting back.
Right.
Yeah. Just fucking getting back. And it's like, dude, it's been like fucking 30 hours a week for that entire year, trying to fucking claw our way back to.
Yeah.
So grimerica.ca/support, guys, if you can, when you can. It's not like we're doing nothing over here. We fucking work a lot on this shit. So if you're getting some value from it, it's basically all we do outside of maybe other work.
Yeah, exactly.
Not any fucking hobbies except for hunting and my family. It's just about hunting season, actually. So I'm hoping that by like September, everything can sort of be in cruise control again,
Yeah, exactly.
Because last hunting season was a fucking write-off with all the fucking work I had to do. And it's funny because the hunting season before that was the first one where we were like in a position where I was like, dude, I'm just taking like 2 months off of the books, and I'm just going to fucking really focus on hunting. And it was great. We were able to just slow things down and be, doing all right. And then, bam, that's what you get. Taking some time off, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone seemed to like it. So we're going to I got to mention that I didn't share it with you, but I got Dasmo's book in, the Sandcastle book. Dasmo chats. It's some of them sandcastles he made were fucking wild, dude. So, are you coming through Calgary? Well, I'm gonna have to see you sooner or later, I guess, because you're getting the wedding ring.
Yeah.
But you're not coming through Calgary, are you? Where are you flying back to?
On my way back, I probably am. I think I have. Oh, maybe Toronto. No, I think it's Toronto. Yeah.
And then right to there.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, I'll probably have to just come meet up with you somewhere after that. Anyway.
And I've got a direct flight to Vancouver on the way out. So,
well, on the way out, it's no good anyway. I just do the old lady's dying for engagement ring back.
So. Oh, okay. Wow.
And
all right.
All right, guys, support the show. grimerica.ca/support. If you're getting some value from our show, from all the stuff we're doing, like we're not getting paid from anyone for this show, period, other than any of you guys who choose to donate or sign up for a monthly. There is enough of them that makes it not a total waste of time, but there's not enough of them to make it a job or anything like that. We have to do the audiobook stuff full time and I work full time and do all that for income. It'd be great to get this show to the point where we could do guys, if we didn't work, we could be giving you all sorts of presentations like this.
Yeah.
We could really have some time if we had some money, even to maybe get some helpers, some researchers, things like that. Learn Greek. How do I learn Greek when I have to just hustle 20 hours a day? So, America.ca/support. There's adultbrain.ca. If you want to get all those audiobooks that we were talking about, you can get them on Spotify. I mean, it's worth mentioning that if you have Spotify Premium in a bunch of countries, USA in particular, our audiobooks are free with your subscription. I think you get 15 hours a month or one audiobook a month. I don't know how it works exactly, but there is a pool mode, so you can just listen to those books and it doesn't cost you any extra and we get paid. So then you can get them in podcast form, Patreon, Bandcamp, Audible, Spotify.
Go to our YouTube channel and put it on while you're sleeping.
Oh, dude, can you believe these sleepers? They get mad about the little ding at the beginning. It's like, fuck you. You know what I noticed? Out of all the places we sell our books, very little complaints. You give the fucking things away for free on YouTube, and everybody's got something to say. Everybody's got something to say. It's fucking unbelievable to me. Anyway, it's mostly positive stuff. Honestly, on that channel, I don't. If it's negative, I just get rid of it. It's not that kind of channel, So there's not a lot of negative stuff, but it's just always, I had the amount of people that complain about that little ding at the beginning. And then I was like, well, I'll just get rid of the ding. And then a bunch of other people got pissy about it. I need the ding. How else do I know it's starting a new book? Well, it's like, probably because he's going to say that like 2 seconds later. You'll figure it out. Anyway, I digress. Adultbrain.ca for the books, GrimericaOutlawed.ca for the other podcast. Contact at the cabin for the trips. We got that exciting trip coming up here with Brandon Powell. And he's working on bringing his buddy Mark England, maybe, and could get interesting, that one. It could get interesting. A few of us might stay at the cabin for one extra day and, get into, have some fun with some fun guys. So I'll send the wife home with the kids on Sunday, and Brandon might want to do this thing. So let us know if that's something you're interested in, but it's going to be an interesting one. It's got, we do some skeet shooting, eat some wild meat. A bunch of us are going out hunting before it. So if that's something you're interested in, if you want to come along for a hunt and see how all that goes down, could be an option. Just email me or email Graham.
Jump in the lake. We're doing the springs and the river.
Hot springs, the river. I mean, it really is a fabulous, fabulous time. It's really, and it makes you better in the process. You'll go away from it feeling better about everything, including yourself. So I think one guy actually last time went back with what happened? He was sick. He's better now, but wasn't for me anyway. Wasn't from the event, but anyway, we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
You're yawning, yet not breathing in a hospital room. Should I call for help? the fuel for your worries. But for God's sakes, time is eternal. Please do not hurry. Please do not fret. Please act now in a way that doesn't lead to regret. Please stop smoking so many cigarettes.